Hello and welcome to the final Cynic Weekly of the season. I am your host, Christopher Gallagher, and it's our regular yearly Cynic Awards, Cynic Player Awards, Celtic Player Awards. We're going to talk through, we've got some categories, we're going to talk through, have a bit of fun, just to finish the season out. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Barry Gallagher. Hello Barry, how are you, sir?
Very well, thank you. I feel relaxed that we don't have any games coming up for a number of months now, and delighted to sort of finish off the season in our usual style, so delighted to be here.
Lovely stuff. We're also joined by the wonderful Stuart Dugan. Hello Stuart, how the hell are you?
I'm really good. It's nice to be sat here in all our tops and tails, ready to hand out some awards for the season that was.
Junior Adamu, step right up.
Yeah, that's the one. I'm quite excited about this because with every almost passing hour, I can feel the dread creeping back into supporting Celtic. So it'd be nice to know.
Have a nice time.
Have a nice time while we can.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're obviously not going to talk about any news or anything. Nothing's really broke, as it were. There's some rumours about managers. There's rumours about players and stuff. But we'll pick all of that up on the agenda on Monday. If you subscribe to the Cynic, I think we did 3. This is our 353rd podcast of the year, Stuart.
And we've saved the best one till last.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. We had 27 articles as well, lots of content. If you want to get involved, because we're continuing over the summer, we're going to build up to hopefully what will be an exciting season coming up for Celtic. We'll have scouting reports, we'll have transfer committees, or season reviews that we do every year and stuff. So, Barry, it's been a pleasure getting involved. Yep, sorry, Stuart, you want to go in?
I just had a quick comment to make that's maybe I'm just staring into the void, but you know in the Nightmare Before Christmas when at the start the guy with the spinny, the mayor, he's like, oh my god, it's only 364 days till Halloween. That's how it's felt a wee bit, where it was so stressful the last couple of weeks, probably months, and then we've won a double and it's felt like within 72 hours Rangers have signed Lauren Shanklin, so they're going to win everything moving forwards, and that's it, and there's nothing that can be said or done. I'm like, I started to think about the futility of all this. Like, why are we putting ourselves through the ringer for it to just have it start up again? There will never be a winner, because even when you're a winner, immediately someone's trying to take it away from you.
It's almost like, can we make this the last one? Can we make this? We'll do this last one. Whoever wins is the best. But Barry, we had our live show, our sold out live show at the Flying Duck, which was a massive success. You enjoy yourself?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I thought such a good laugh. The format of the show, Tears of a Cynic, was great to take part in that. I think all the attendees enjoyed it, and just a good atmosphere as well, and it was good to catch up with people afterwards and in between as well, so really good, and it just kind of whets the appetite to do more of that sort of thing.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to certainly have a couple more live shows coming up. Look out for details on that. Let's get into it straight away, because as Stu says, as fun as it is, we have to kind of rethink certain parts of the season. We've got the Celtic Player Awards, we've got the Team Awards, and we've got the non-Celtic section of the pod. So there's probably going to be some repetition in terms of some of the categories, but let's just start with, who is your Celtic Player of the Year? Barry Gallagher.
I've gone for Daizen Maeda. It was took a lot of sort of thought to go through it. It was potentially Nigrin. But I just think that the importance of Daizen in those sort of final 7 or 8 games, without that impact, I don't think we'd be sitting here as happy as we are today. It was almost like he kind of took the bull by the horn and said, I'm going to do this. He was like a man possessed. There's been comparisons from O'Neill, no less, with sort of Larson-esque, and I said Daizen-esque there, that's how much I hold him in high regard. But it was like that, like it was like, right, he's kicked in. And it was also interesting, I know you guys were up at the stadium after the game on Saturday, but how he kind of said, he almost apologised for how poor he's been for the
season.
The totality of the season. But I just thought it was exceptional to watch. Sometimes he'll really amaze you, because we know his technique isn't the best, but even going back to the game on Saturday, that ability to just lift the ball over the goalkeeper, you couldn't think that was the same guy who lashes like a left-footed cross out the pitch time and time again. I won't go into it too much, because some of his goals might feature again shortly, but I just thought, like, kind of had his chest puffed out, if he wasn't assisting, he was scoring. He was just kind of back to his pressing machine best, and just an absolute joy to watch. And it's a shame because I think he probably will go now, but what a sort of way to bow out. And there's been a lot of sort of discourse this week whether he's been more important than Kyogo over the course, and also who had the bigger impact, him or Nakamura. But Daizen would be right up there for those final 7 games, and yeah, just for me, he's a kind of standout winner. Probably, as we say, not over the whole course of the season, but I just think in terms of importance, there's no one that comes close to him.
Beautifully put. Sure.
Do you want me to comment on Daizen Maeda or give you my player of the year?
Oh, do you know what? I just assumed that your player of the year was Daizen Maeda, but I'm delighted to hear it's everyone. So
it's not, and I think everything that Barry said is correct, and I actually think that even on the last 7 or 8 games form, it's more than enough to justify giving it to Daizen. Just such was the extent of his effort to pull us over the line. I kind of felt when answering this that there just hasn't really been anyone that's contributed across the whole season that stands out head and shoulders. So it's a bit difficult, and I feel horrible doing it. But I think I am going to align with the club and probably say Benjamin Nygren, purely because, and this is again as someone that I find Benjamin Nygren every ounce as frustrating as everyone else does. But I just think that for a larger chunk of the season, if we didn't have Benjamin Nygren performing the way he did, I honestly don't know if we would have finished in the top 6, because there were so many games where he was scoring the decisive goal or having the decisive moment of impact. And that really fell away from his game as we came into the real business end of the season. So I can totally understand why there's such a clamour when he's not really producing much and he's not really contributing much in terms of work rate as that third midfielder, why we were persisting with him. And then he does something like that in the Motherwell game and you're like, well, I guess that's kind of why he plays. And I think he's going to be this constant, like maybe the most frustrating Celtic player in modern times, where, you know, he's the club's player of the year, but you would quite happily seen him not start the next game. And I also find that when he didn't start, he would come on and score in impact games as well. And he's just this really enigmatic
I want
player.
to consistently dislike you. You're making it difficult to. Nygren is, yeah. I think you're. I kind of feel somewhere. I chose Daizen, right, but I also thought heavily about Nygren, just in terms of. I think it is as simple as if you take away his 21 goals. Like, where does that leave Celtic? Some really decisive goals. The goal against Motherwell, a couple of great goals in Europe, but Barry, the support never really took to him. It's quite odd.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I think when he came in, I really liked the profile of player, and he started this season at the expense of Engels. I remember Rodgers he was the third man in midfield, wasn't it, with Kalmak and Hatate, and then he did start to score, but I think his personality as well, when he was doing the kind of cupping of the ears and stuff like that. I know that's kind of nitpicking a wee bit, but it just didn't. It felt like kind of read the room when there's so much turmoil going on between the club and the fans, and he's doing that. And then his style of play wasn't really influencing games. What I will say though, there was some instances when he would kick into gear. I think I remember the semi-final against Rangers at Hampden. I thought he really kind of came into his own in the second half there. There was sort of fits and starts of that where he would have a better second half. I think back to Feyenoord away, that great goal off the bar and in. Just love that type of goal anyway. But yeah, I kind of feel like people say like, oh, he might go to another team and they'll know how to use him, but I don't really see how you can use him. I think I think he maybe played off the right for his last club in times as well, and you can see why, maybe because he can cut in with his left foot. But yeah, he's not particularly quick, strong. Doesn't really have.
It's true.
He doesn't really have a trick to get by someone, but he just has an incredible knack of scoring goals, and I can see why teams are interested in him if you are purely looking at his output. But that's maybe where the sort of difference between the stats and the eyes don't align. So hopefully clubs with deep pockets are looking more at the stats rather than monitoring him over 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I think he should go to Italy or somewhere like that, because I think he really thrives on time and space. When he's not being harried, he can produce real quality, but sometimes his decision making is so bad that if you rush him, you're just going to, or take too many touches or dilly-dally. And it's interesting some of the briefing from the club about who's moving on, he's not in the list. So I don't think he's in the list of players that the club would expect to move on this window, but I suspect he will. Whether it's one of these late August deals, obviously it depends on his World Cup and stuff like that as well. But I think that for someone that's just never quite clicked, if we take what we've got out of him and move on and just continually probably look back and try and solve the puzzle of like who he is or what he was. And yeah,
I'm really interested. See, normally when Celtic players leave Celtic, I don't really care. Celtic get the transfer for fee and I just kind of forget about them. I'm just going to be quite interested in seeing how he does because of that enigmatic part of it, where you look at him and you go, how is he Is he performing like he did for Celtic at a higher level? Is that just his superpower, is finding that time and space? Anyway, interesting. Nygren, I think, a good candidate. Daizen's a good candidate as well. I chose Daizen, so, there's no right or wrong answer in that regard. Right, second category. Young Player of the Year. Stuart Duggan, talk me through it.
So I don't think that we're really bowled over with options here. I think the club gave it to Yang, but I'm pretty sure Yang's like 29 or something like that, and they just thought they could fucking skirt it. So I've plumped for Colby Donovan, and I don't think that Colby Donovan is by any stretch been like a real standout performer, but I've just sort of gauged it in terms of expectation and how he's coped with being relied upon at times, because we've been so bereft at right back without Alistair Johnson, and Anthony Ralston has been found wanting so many times. So much more was asked of Colby Donovan than would have ever been asked of him in terms of blooding a player like that. And I thought that over the piece, he dealt with it much, much better than I think we thought we would. And all of this sounds like faint praise because none of it is real. He came in and he was amazing and he took his chance. But I think he's equipped himself well enough that you can now, maybe for the first time in a long time, go, he's an option. Like, he will be an asset. Might be a sellable asset if, depending on what they do with him in the summer. It might well be that, maybe the club move on Ralston because he's clearly at the bottom of the pecking order. And
Colby Donovan's out of contract and he's not signed a new one.
That's not ideal. I'll be honest, that's not ideal.
Not great, is it?
Well, let's work with the grounds that he signs.
I think he will.
Contract,
I think they'll sort that out.
Maybe he's, at the moment, they have him to deputise in terms of you feel like he can do all right domestically and he's getting better from playing more games, or maybe they say he needs a year out on loan and then you'll have a real good idea of what you're dealing with. I thought there is another candidate, maybe Barry's picked him, I don't know, but I just felt like over the piece I just gave it to Donovan through lack of options.
Before we come to Barry, I also gave it to Colby Donovan. I think he's had some really good performances. I think he's had some really poor performances. I think he's excelled in some areas. I think he's been found wanting in some areas, which just goes to show how raw his talent is at this point. And we're going to need someone to either really shine him up and get consistency, or again, move him on. And if you get £1 million for a young academy player, that's a success. So I like what I've seen from him. I can understand why people are maybe kind of on the fence, but he would be my young player as well. Barry.
Full house.
Lovely.
As well. So I think his form did tail off, and that's only natural with a young player. I think he was one of many who were really poor at that game at Tannadice. I believe that's the game he got injured as well.
He was, yeah.
But I think back to the Red Star Belgrade away game, and I thought that's where he really came of age. I actually think he came on in the Kairat game as well, didn't he? And I actually thought he did himself no harm then out of everyone. But to go to such a hostile environment, Red Star, was kind of widely regarded as that tunnel's terrifying, isn't it, and stuff like that. But he came out there and it was like a real man's performance. And then just kind of his personality as well. Think back to him being on the pitch for Park a couple of weeks ago, celebrating with Engels and Ralston, etc.
Being in a stand and all that.
Yeah, and also how he was in the tunnel, that famous cup game that Stuart did the lovely expose on. And you could just tell he is a passionate fan. I like his profile. I think he's big, he's strong. There is a lot of improvement for him to make, which is only natural. But as Stuart says, I think he is the natural replacement to sort of usurp Ralston in that backup position. And he hasn't really had a lot of time to learn from Alistair Johnson, but you would hope that would be the sort of partnership that he could learn from him. And yeah, it's probably slim pickings, I think, this year for a number of these categories, but Donovan was the sort of standout for me.
I think if also as well, like a young player coming into the fold when the team are going good guns and their structure and all that is very different from coming in when players are injured, managers are changing, formations are changing. So for him to kind of ride it out, I think is some going. And yeah, great. We're all in agreement.
See, just on that as well, I always think back to one of the Cynic chats, William Divers is in, and he was astounded to find out that he wasn't American with the name Cole.
I know. That is what a bizarre name. Right, we're going into our third. Now, this one is an interesting one because you can look at it from so many different angles. Most improved player.
I think this will be unanimous.
Okay.
Dare I say it? Yangimus.
Correct.
Yeah, it is. What are you, unanimous?
Really
Sure, start with you, Yang.
I'm a Yang skeptic. And even I have to accept that he's just been brilliant at points over the course of the season. I find him still a wee bit frustrating in terms of I just wish you could count on him every single week to have like a 7 out of 10, but sometimes he'll be like 7 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 3 out of 10. You're like, ugh, you need to kick those out. And I think he is getting better, and I think from a player who quite literally, not only did he have his bags packed, I think he'd actually left. He was on his way to go and sign for someone else. To have come back and to show the professionalism that he has done and to make the impact that he has done, and not just in like, oh, we're off to play Dundee and he's tipped up. Big games. He scored big goals in big games.
Yeah.
When he's good, he's really, really good. And when he's frustrating, he makes you want to just like punch a wall. But I think over the piece, he's been brilliant, and it does make sense to extend that contract. Given the sort of lack of solid options that we have in wide areas, if you have a player like Yang who can do what he's done and then hopefully continue on an upward trajectory, I think that could be something really special. So I always keep him at arm's length in terms of really, really praising him, but there is nobody in that team who's gone further from where they started than Yang, and he's been a huge asset.
It's funny, we're going to talk about goal of the season. It's funny he get goal of the season because there's another goal that's just a little bit better. Barry, Yang for you as well. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah,
are you a Yang skeptic?
Yes, I'm similar to Stuart. There's no doubt in his ability. I think, weirdly, when I think of Yang and his sort of transformation this season, I think he's probably the only one who performed well under Wilfred Nancy. He sort of, it's kind of horrible flashbacks, but you know when you see them training in the warm-up and they've got like the back three would have been then, but Yang was kind of joined on to them and he was kind of playing as that sort of right
wing back.
Obviously he scores the goal that you mentioned under Nancy against Rangers as well, but in terms of goals, I think a Feyenoord away, 2 against Rangers, and the thing that made it jump out for me was I remember to see the Scottish Cup final last year against Aberdeen. He came on and he was absolutely dreadful. I remember thinking, I never want to see him play for Celtic again.
True, that was as bad as it got. It was so bad.
But he just worked at it. I know that O'Neill spoke in his first term as interim manager. I think he said he spoke to Yang a lot and tried to give him confidence because he did have the ability, all the sort of natural ability to go by people, but maybe didn't have the end product. But I think he's really improved that this season, and he has become sort of your number one winger.
Yeah.
That maybe says more about the drop-off and what we've done to the team by selling all the kind of prized assets, but I think you have to give him enormous credit in terms of goals and assists, and his personality's come out a wee bit as well, which is good to see. I think he is a popular player
I think,
in the dressing room.
Popular, yeah.
And you see how happy people are for him when he scores and how happy he is as well. So it is funny, like Stuart says, the fact that the deal to Birmingham was agreed and I believe Nicholson went to answer his phone, etc. Remember that guy? But yeah, I think he's hands down player of the year. If he was to go, I think we'd get a far bigger fee than we would have this time last year.
Just think about if he had went though.
Yeah.
Like,
Darkest timeline.
Darkest timeline. Do you know what? Sorry to interrupt this. You mentioned Wilfred Nancy. See, when Wilfred Nancy was on that podcast, and they were like, Celtic was a bit of a disaster and all that. How do you reflect? It's like, it was great. I had a fucking great time, man. It was class.
He was really laughing off the whole tactics board. He's like, I got slated for that. He's like, but I'll still keep using it. And I was like,
well, maybe. Yeah.
Did you see the quotes from AJ, kind of saying like in another time he might have been successful?
he's just a nice guy, isn't he?
He is just a nice guy. He's trying to punt his brother.
I thought that was class as well.
Yeah. Big props to
AJ. I think Yang was probably in our top 3 highest performers of the season, and that's a long way from that cup final 12 months ago.
Absolutely, yep, great stuff. I agree. Yang, popular in the dressing room. I'm also a bit of a Yang skeptic from a long-term perspective, but he's the type of guy that new contract. So if he does improve further, we were going to lose him for what, 2-3 million quid. You could end up getting a higher. And back to the point, who the fuck cares? Because we never spend money anyway. But yeah, Yang, most improved player. Interesting one, Unsung Hero. And again, another category where you can kind of utilise it however you want. Stuart, who have you went for?
I think there might be some debate about this because I think there's probably a few options. I've gone from someone that I feel has come in for an inordinate amount of criticism actually this season.
Okay.
And that is Callum McGregor, because I think that his performances have dropped off, but as always is the case with him, I think rumours of his demise are often a little bit exaggerated when things are at their worst and when you need him. But I think this is maybe similar to like the Maeda one in terms of that last stretch in the season. I think his performance level was right back up. You were talking a lot, maybe it was at the live show maybe the other day, about that last sort of 5-10 minutes against Hearts. And I think more than anything, how he's just kept the show on the road for what has been such a difficult season. And I think that there are lots of it. You don't have to look far for examples of leaders in Glasgow that go missing and go hiding when it gets really hard. And I know that his performances haven't been as good as we would expect at his level, but I think what he's done for those players in terms of keeping them together, keeping them motivated, has been completely essential. And it's another one where I just don't think we would have got over the line if it wasn't for that sort of level of influence.
Yeah.
That's not always a good thing. The team should not be so dependent on Callum McGregor either as a motivator or on the pitch, because on the pitch you can start to see the decline. But yeah, just completely essential, and his kind of show of emotion, I think, shows that it's probably taken a real toll on him this year.
I think so.
And I understand why people are critical of him, but I think probably has done a lot more than we know.
I think he's a lightning rod. I think every captain would be a lightning rod in that situation. So I think you're right that some of the criticism probably has been unfair from all of us. When you're in the when you're in the thick of it, which every single Celtic fan has been this season, I think he is the guy you look to and you get frustrated at, you get annoyed at, you pick over everything he's saying, every word he says. So I think he turned it around really pretty well at the end of the season. Was
it Rugby Park when he was going mental? He's like, we're not going anywhere and all that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Moments like that, I think a lot of people would say that it's like for show or for the cameras. Declan Rice gets that levelled at him constantly down south. That he can't do anything, poor guy. He's a traitor, of course.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Fuck him.
I think that sort of stuff and that kind of attitude, I think that's real from McGregor. I think it's very much how he shows emotion and stuff. So.
Great stuff. Barry?
I've gone for Arne Engels.
Okay.
Because I believe that I think he gets a lot of unfair criticism, and I know the expectation is huge because he's a record signing by quite a distance, £11 million or whatever it was. But I think he noticed the difference when he was out for that long period of time. Can't quite remember how long it was, 7 or 8 weeks?
It was about 8 weeks, yeah.
And again, we spoke about this in the live show. I think the importance of Engels and AJ coming back in for this after the split was so important for us to get over the line. And I do get that there is criticism of him because he maybe doesn't have the numbers in terms of goals and assists that you would hope for, but I think the sort of work that he does that goes unnoticed is so important to the team. Delighted they got the goal in the cup final on Saturday. he knuckled down after his injury. After not getting his big money transfer. A lot of people were asking would he sort of down tools, but I don't think he did. And I think you've seen an improvement in him in terms of performances in big games because he does want the ball. He wants to sort of support McGregor in there, and I think again there's probably a correlation with McGregor's form picking up with having Engels in there beside him.
Totally.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I just think he's an exceptional footballer. I was talking to Colin of this parish actually on Sunday night about that's the level I'd like Celtic to get to. See if we had the majority of our team, and there's no reason why it couldn't be, that sort of bracket of player.
Yeah.
22, 23, coming from the Bundesliga, technically very good. He's got the physique of a footballer. If we could have one of them in every position, I think we'd be doing far better than we are just now. And I just really like him. I like the song that was getting sung about him as well, 11 million down the drain, and Engels scores again at the weekend. And I just think he's the perfect profile for what I aspire Celtic to be. So, yeah, I think he does deserve his flowers for the way that he sort of carried us over the line to the double as well. And I guess it's just about building consistency. And I think there was a discussion the other night as well that it's unfortunate that we probably won't see
the best of him.
But I think he'll always look back fondly at his time at Celtic, and I'll certainly look back fondly of his time here as well.
Absolutely.
I would agree with that. I think he's brilliant. I think his technical ability is just better than a lot of players that we have in the team. I think...
Sure, I'm going to jump in. Is there any chance we could keep him to January?
I don't think so, no. I also don't think that would serve us particularly well. I don't think that for the bigger sellable assets we should be looking to lose them in January because it'd be so destabilising for whatever we're up to.
That's true.
And I think that, you know, Arne Engels would have always probably been like a 2-year project at Celtic, but as Barry says, Celtic could afford to put those sorts of players in all the positions and it would still be an incredibly profitable business model because they're all going to go for like 20, 25 million pounds. And so it's frustrating that maybe we haven't quite seen the peak of Arne Engels. Maybe he's not going to get any better than that, but he's certainly delivered for us. Whether it's just penalty goals, high pressure moments, set pieces, whatever, he kind of has been a really important part of the last 2 years. And, you know, he's probably going to go for double his fee, so it's good business as well as, you know, a very useful member of the squad. So you would hope that that's, whatever the restructuring that they're planning, you would hope that they're trying to get some sort of vision as to how that could be done, but who knows?
I like his profile. I like how he approaches games. I like his attitude on the pitch. He's quite aggressive. He's quite demanding. High standards. Yeah, great one. I've chosen James Forrest just in terms of, you know, the peaks and troughs is not working here. There was points in the season where I think he came on, obviously the game against St Mirren, the Scottish Cup, and he just lifted the team. The game against Hearts, last game of the season, I thought he was exceptional. Scoring that goal against Aberdeen. I just think he is quietly went about his business. People are always going to talk about James Forrest because he's a living legend. But I just feel like, yeah, just a wee bit of an unsung hero this season. And I think it's good to see.
I think he's just an unsung hero in general. And I think that, do you know what grinds my gears? See, when people point out that it's a damning indictment of the business model that James Forrest still plays for Celtic, I think that James Forrest is just this like unicorn that doesn't really exist in modern football much anymore, and that obviously Celtic's business model is not great, but that I don't think that James Forrest is the big issue that everyone thinks, because more often than not he contributes, even if it's in small amounts, and I'm sure that having like a living legend around the dressing room does help for people that can go, and even if it's just standard setting, like everyone talks about what an amazing trainer he is and how that's something that lifts the levels at training. For the money that he's on and for the harm that it causes to keep him around, he's never really out of line. He's never asking for more than he gets, and
can play both wings.
And can be just trusted with a ball fired into him. So yeah.
Can you imagine if all that part was about when we signed Moravcik? Insane. Although having said that, when we signed Moravcik, I was going off my head because I was like, what the fuck? Anyway, brilliant. So, Unsung Hero. biggest surprise, Barry Gallagher. Your biggest surprise.
I've gone for the senior man himself, Kelechi Iheanacho. I think no harm to him as an individual, but it was just, when you think back to that transfer window in the summer, obviously the disappointment of going out to Kairat Almaty. The window closes, we have no striker, and then Rodgers makes a call to Kelechi. There was that video of him going round of the sort of, he was training in Manchester, and then also the clip of him at Middlesbrough where he looked like he was towing a caravan. And
he doesn't look much faster now, to be
He does not. And then I think it's a kind of two-part to this, because he comes in, he scores a goal at Rugby Park, he scores in that game I mentioned earlier at Red Star Belgrade. And then you can see he's got the quality in terms of hold-up play. I think back to probably up until this recent spell, one of his best performances was the cup final that we lost to St Mirren. I thought he was exceptional, and then when he went off, it all went to shit. And then at that point, you're thinking, well, he's obviously got some ability, but it's just, that's what happens when you sign someone after the window closes. Like, you get kind of what you pay for. But I think him coming back into the team in April time, the amount of goals that he scored, the performances, I think back to the Hearts game when we won the league, I thought he was exceptional that day. Like, again, a man possessed to try and drag us over the line. His ability is second to none, I think. Like, probably you could argue the most ability in the squad, but it's that fitness thing that Stu mentioned there. I just think there's something about left-footed forwards that just looks great as well, just the way that they strike the ball. The pressure to score the penalty at Fir Park. I loved his goal on Saturday in the cup final, just that close control, and even with the handball before it didn't put him off. He also won people a lot of money with his scoring and taking his shirt off as well, so thank you for that. But I just think that from that, if you were to go back and ask me on the 1st of September 2025 what I'd be expecting of Iheanacho, I'd have probably thought not a lot at all, because I thought he was done. But he's become a cult hero, and I think we spoke maybe a couple of weeks ago on the weekly. I didn't think that he would get a deal, but I kind of feel like he might now. And there's been a lot of sort of talk about what a pre-season would do for him. His body does kind of feel a bit broken, but he wants to stay. I think you saw his personality and his aura walking around the pitch with both trophies. So I don't think it'd be a hard deal to do, and maybe a pre-season will help. It feels a bit unlikely, but I just think that he has been such a surprise and such a likeable character that he sort of comes into that cult hero bracket for me.
Absolutely. Stuart?
That's actually a better answer than mine. I think that is correct. I've gone with Callum Osmond just because I think maybe a lot of the sort of opinion on him was set by Rodgers, and maybe by like one or two pre-season appearances that he was like, oh god, this guy doesn't look like he's ever kicked the ball. Well, he literally barely has it at a professional level. And I don't know whether or not it's just from seeing less of him that therefore his impact has seemed so much bigger. But if you think about it, has he had a fourth appearance? So there was the Rangers game, Midtjylland.
He came on Midtjylland, yeah.
And then
he played one game before that as well. Remember O'Neill brought him in the Falkirk game?
That's right. And he was good in that game as well when he came on. He looked lively. So for having so few appearances, but to have had such big impacts in all of those games, not only his goal in the semi-final, but he nearly scored another one and was just electric when he came on. Midtjylland, obviously, the night he gets injured, he wins the penalty, and we just looked garbage all night, and suddenly we looked like we could get in behind and have a bit of a spark. And then I feel like because of the nature of his goal in the Hearts game, his impact is a little bit underwritten, but he finds it's the assist, you know what I mean? Like, that's nobody else in whatever it was, 85, 86 minutes of football had been able to pick out the free person in the box, and he came on and did it almost immediately. And I just think that nobody could have predicted what a big impact he would have, particularly from such little football. So I think Barry is correct that probably over the piece Kelechi is the better answer, because I think folk thought he was completely washed, and the level of quality that we've seen quite consistently from him is extremely high. But I don't think anyone, let's say after pre-season, would have looked at Callum Osmond, or even after the first few games when he's not making squads, and gone, that guy is going to win us the league in the last game of the season.
Absolutely. I've went for Marcello Sirachi. And based around the idea of a guy who wasn't getting a game for Boca Juniors, who we brought in, it felt very sort of, we've went to an agent and said, who can we get? And they've punted as this guy, £70,000 for the fee. It just felt destined to fail. And the fact that he has become an absolute cult hero already, he's someone that I think everyone wants to sign. Everyone can see the value in him. He was integral to winning the league. Mm-hmm. From my expectations of when he came in, I thought this is just the club pulling. And maybe, by the way, that both things can be true. Like, the club could have just went to an agent and the guys punted them, but it just turns out he's fucking class, and what a surprise.
Just on that, I'm sure I read at the time that Boca Juniors actually approached Celtic. I don't
Is
know,
that right?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Like
yes,
said,
that's right, yeah.
I don't know if they knew that we need the
You
left
guys
back
are
or not.
desperate, aren't you? Oh, God, aye.
But
Who have you got?
As you say, I think you're right. I love the guy. I think we should be doing everything we can. Again, it feels like an easy deal to do if you're not Celtic FC.
See the live show when we were doing the tiers of a Cynic, where we basically put every player into a different tier, some positive, some negative. The reaction for Sirachi was insane. Now, people had a few beers, there's no question, but
I think by far the biggest reaction out of every player.
Yeah, probably.
yeah, I think so too. Yeah. Great. Okay, now best signing. I'll just say quickly, I put Iheanacho for a lot of the things that Barry said. There's plenty of other obviously, different options, but Iheanacho.
I wouldn't say there's plenty. It's been quite slim pickings.
Yeah. Well, Kieran Tierney, Negrin.
Don't spoil it.
Yeah, sorry. Iheanacho for me, I think is pound for pound probably the best signing. The fact that we brought him in on a free after the window had closed, in a situation where everyone completely had written him off. And for him, we talk about those last couple of games and the impact and the leadership from McGregor and all these players, the important players, Daizen's performances. I think Iheanacho just scores in the cup final. Yeah, great signing. Stuart.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's a big case that could be made. I've gone for another free signing. I've gone for Kieran Tierney, because I just think that
Golden Boots.
over the piece, I think he's been brilliant. I think, again, people were a lot harsher on him in those first few weeks, months, when he was only kind of able to do like 60 minutes, and when you could see that he looked in kind of quite big physical decline. I think, having not played regular football for as long as he had, it was always going to take time, and I think folk got frustrated with how long it was taking. I would also argue there's possibly a Brendan Rodgers factor involved there as well, which should maybe be caveated. But once he's got up and running, hasn't been injured, played 53 games or something like that, we were saying, and I think has played at a really high level for a really long time. His goals and assists have been much, much higher than I think anyone would have considered. He's been more physical, more robust. It's definitely different to what we've experienced with Greg Taylor, just in terms of tactically how we've used him. And at times, I don't think you've seen the best of him because we've struggled so much in wide areas up front. We talked about it, I can't remember what game it was, but it was recently when him and Taneki were almost like bumping into each other. That's because Tierney's doing stuff that Taneki's not expecting, and Taneki's not where he should be and stuff like that. And I think that if you can maybe get a bit more of a fluidity in those positions, you'll see even more from Tierney. And then obviously we've talked about it, the leadership and the drive from big senior players in big moments. And I think Kieran Tierney's been a perfect example of that.
Well put, Stuart. Barry?
I've gone for Benjamin Negrin.
Okay.
I know that we kind of slated him earlier, but just for all the reasons you guys said, in terms of goals, wasn't a big transfer fee, and he's kind of exceeded what we'd hoped. So I think, again, not the easiest. I don't think any of these categories were particularly easy to choose because of the nature of the season, but yeah, for me, Benjamin Negrin.
Great stuff. This is the last player award. Disappointing signing.
It's the most competitive category.
It is, yes, there's plenty of options. Barry?
I've gone for Sebastian Tenecki.
Okay, talk me through it.
It's mainly because I didn't have great expectations from coming in, because it felt like the reports you were reading of him and the fact we could have got him for less than half the fee, I think, in the January or whatever. But it's more how he started. I was at the game at Kilmarnock, went in 12 minutes late, don't you worry about that.
Of course.
But not everyone can say that. But yeah. But I thought he looked really promising that day, dare I say, Jota-esque in some regards. But I don't think he ever lived up to that. He has had his moments. I thought he was really good in the Rangers game when he came on. But in terms of his numbers and goals and assists, I don't think he's been anywhere near what you would... I know 5 million is not a lot of money, but for us, 5 million is still in that sort of upper echelons of the most fees that we've paid. You could argue that there is another fairly obvious one who came in for the same amount of money, but the reason I'm basing this on is because that first game I thought, wow, this is something that we can work with here, and I just don't think that he has lived up to that.
Yourself, Stuart?
Well, I've gone for the other one. I've gone for Balikwisha because I just think that, it's insane, obviously, how long we scouted him for. The fee was 5 and a bit million, maybe more, was it 5?
I think it was a bit, yeah.
And to have the sum of his contributions be 1 assist, albeit an important assist, and basically nothing else, and to not have been making match squads for as long as he has is an absolute disgrace. It's disappointing is not the word. Someone should lose their job. Obviously Tisdale did, but it is an absolute embarrassment. And he doesn't have... So with Tenecki, I completely agree with Barry. He's been very disappointing, and I think that you have seen little flashes from him, and he has contributed, so that's one of the only things that sort of separates the two. I do think that Tenecki's shown in moments and has given you like important goals or important in moments in games, but Balikwisha's done nothing. He's never looked like he's going to offer something. I think Tenecki, I still hold out a wee bit of hope that maybe now he's won a couple of trophies and he kind of knows what it's about, and he gets a pre-season and he knows what the league's like, and he can be a part of the group. Maybe with O'Neill, maybe with a new manager, maybe he can find a role where he can really contribute. Balikwisha looks like at no point has he had the profile, personality, character to play for a club like Celtic, and so it's just unforgivable that so much money has been wasted on him. And I think it's going to be really difficult to offload him, because I think you could probably punt him out on loan and kind of do that dance for a couple of years, but it's a lot of money. It is a lot of money, The
Celtification of Tenecki, just bring him in.
Completely. And I think there's a few obvious candidates from the January window. You've got Junior Adamu, you've got Mvuka, you've got Chanchara. All of these players have been disappointing in their own ways, but I think for the money spent and the build-up, it's just been so bad.
Do you remember when Martin O'Neill was leaving the first time, and he's like, I feel really sorry for some of the players, Balikwisha and all that. He said that knowing thinking he wasn't coming back.
Yeah, maybe the next guy will have a good go with him.
And I can imagine the first time, that first press conference, what about Balikwisha? I don't remember saying that. That's... Yeah, I'll just take your pick. Like, there is so many options in that. Take your pick. I'm sure everyone. Balikwisha's a great option. Tenecki's a great option. All those loan players that we brought in, those 3 players that were just,
Even Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think people would have hoped he would have contributed a little bit more than he did, whilst I do think he has had a very important contribution. It's just disappointing.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
Do you know, Oxlade-Chamberlain was my kind of first thought, because I just was hoping he would have more influence. And that game at Ibrox, I think, kind of really made me think, we're done. Okay, so let's move on to team awards. The first one is, it's one I think we might all agree in. I've thought about a second option. I'm sure you probably have a couple options. Goal of the season. Stuart Tigan.
Daizen overhead kick for me. I think it's very rare that in such a big game that you can be left actually speechless.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't speak after it. I was jaw on the floor at what I'd seen. And I think it's also very rare that you just know that you're watching like a history that's going to be replayed time and time and time again. And it's not even like, you know, the Chermiti goal earlier on in the year where they'll look back on that and be like, that was amazing. Well, what was the result? Well, you didn't win. So this was a huge game. Couldn't have been any bigger game and couldn't have been a better goal. And I think that there are other ones, like Yang's probably falls into that category as well, where it was an unbelievable goal in a game that we lost and was actually like a real low point in the season. So yeah, just unbelievable. I know we've talked about Daizen earlier on, but I can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, I mean, Barry, have you got an alternative or?
No, exactly the same. I think it's the best goal I've ever seen live.
Yep.
And 30 odd years of watching Celtic, I just totally agree with Stu. Like, as soon as he hit it, I knew it was in, and it was just the reaction of everyone in the stadium. Like, people were just gobsmacked. It's one of those goals that it's weird in my seat, just where I sit. I can't see the big screens, but when it did show the replay, the stadium made a noise because they saw it again, and it was just perfect. I loved all the footage after it. The celebrations from the players. I think Arne Engels that we mentioned, he's just kind of standing with his head in his hands, like, what the fuck have I just witnessed? And to score that goal, given the circumstance of had to win that game, it gave us a bit of distance between us and Rangers. And I think the slow motion reaction from the Sky cameras is when it's almost the ball's too high for the camera, and then you just see it drop perfectly into the top corner. And
cinematic.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier, Daizen's technique maybe isn't the best, but to be able to do that in such a game is just a goal that will be watched for years and years. And I honestly don't think I'm being over dramatic by saying it is the best goal I've ever seen.
One of my favourite things about it, other than obviously what an insane goal it was, Daizen Maeda, even when he scores and it's a big game or a big goal, he never gets too emotional, and I'm going to talk about that a wee bit later as well. The moment that I love so much is when he sort of throws his head back and he's like, wow, as in like, I cannot believe that I've just done that, and then he almost composes himself to like go and celebrate. And I just love that you know, later on he'd be like, oh, I was just lucky. But who else would even think about doing that in that team? Nobody. Maybe Nygren, actually. He wouldn't do it right.
I've got Daizen as well. The alternative I had, just to have another game, another goal to kind of throw up that I thought was important or special, was Nygren's free kick against Hearts at Tynecastle.
What was exceptional?
Just because we don't often see Celtic
Historic.
score. Set piece, direct corners, direct free kicks.
He's just done that as well. I loved the build up that Ian Crocker. I cannot stand the man now. He's
parodying now, isn't he? Yeah.
But they kept saying Celtic haven't scored a free kick since the Bernabeu, and then he just have that.
Yeah.
Have that.
Great goal. I think a lot of these may be the same. Game of the season, Stuart.
I've said Celtic 3, Hearts 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just because. And obviously, it's a game of two halves, as they say. And the first half was not great, and Celtic were not great. I thought Celtic were really, 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 really as good as they've been all season in that last half hour. And when the chips were the most down they've ever been, they came up big. And what a way to win a game of football, what a way to win a league. And for so many, many, many reasons. And the not beating Hearts all season and then finally doing it on the last day, I kind of felt like the whole way, I didn't think Celtic had it in them to win those 5 games, 6 games on the spin or whatever it was. 7 games by the end, I suppose, in the Cup. And I always just thought we were going to be due a result or due a draw somewhere, and I thought it was going to come there, and they just proved me wrong, and absolutely incredible.
Barry?
Yeah, exact same. I think that we, as our sort of generation, now have our 86 moment.
Yep.
The atmosphere in the stadium was incredible, and I think I said last week on the pod, that feeling of realising that there wasn't a goalkeeper and you knew he was going to score, that prolonged celebration, this potentially my top 5 Celtic moments of all time.
Oof.
Just that sheer joy and relief. And it goes back to that whole thing of, if you're not a Celtic fan, you get all these questions about, is it boring? But it never does. Like, that feeling of winning things, and to have been so far out of it, I think if you were to do like a sort of compilation of us on the weekly, no, we're out of it, we're not going to do it, it's impossible, so on and so on. But that moment, 10, 15 seconds of the sort of procession from the halfway line to tapping the ball in was just, that's why we do what we do.
That's why we do what we do. That's why we're on these mics at the moment. And, you know, when I was in the stadium, when I was watching that, it felt like time stood still for just a moment. And it felt like just very special. And I got really emotional about it. And, yeah, it was great, that outpouring of emotion. Domestic highlight, Barry, again, it's been a season where we're maybe going to repeat ourselves and stuff, but your domestic highlight?
Probably recency bias, but the Rangers game for me.
What one?
The last one, the 3-1.
Okay.
Was 3-1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just because we hadn't beat them for so long. The last time we beat them in the league game was September 2024, I believe, the one McGregor scored. And it was such an important game. I know for them it was all about trying to stop us from winning the title.
Pathetic.
And just to be able to kind of click into action, I think the old double tap is trademark yourself.
Yep.
The 2 Daizen goals in the second half just took the game away from them. I thought the atmosphere was great. Obviously the goal that we've mentioned, and it was good to kind of. I think back to Aaron Rodgers as not someone that we're keen on, but I think back to 2 years ago when he said this is when Celtic come alive, and I think that kind of rings true for the split this year. And the Rangers game was just so much fun, beating them and just kind of showing them like we're the top dogs. I also loved after the game them playing Danny Rowe as well. I thought that was snidey, but I loved it. So yeah, that one for me was the domestic highlight.
Stuart?
I've sort of cheated with my answer, so sorry about that. But I've just sort of put late winners because it's been a real theme of the season. And
What was your favourite late winner, though?
so I think my favourite one is definitely Arojo. But I have quite a weird relationship with it because I was in Vietnam and I was extremely jet lagged, and I think it was at something like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I tried to stay up for the game, and we were 2-0 down, and I fell asleep, and I woke up just after we'd scored to win 3-2, and I was like, what the fuck has happened? Like, where am I? What's going on? So I didn't get the real like joy of watching it hit the back of the net and the excitement as you would have done it in game. So I think that is probably the best and most important of them. But there's been so many. Far Park, Dundee. It's something. Rangers, yeah. Well, yeah, Hatate. Normally, it's like we'll have one of them in a season. If you think about, I know these were both in the same season, but like the Ross County, Ralston, Abada against Dundee United.
Yeah.
Obviously, Matt O'Reilly against Motherwell. Those were all like quite iconic goals, and I feel like this season, even if you go back to the first day, like McCowan scores in like the 94th minute, and you don't realise how important that's going to be, but the margins were so fine that it's just a brilliant thing. And I think the more it's happened, the more it probably preys on opponents' minds that they're like, oh, they do always just find a way to score, and then we do. So great, just that.
Yeah, me, I've put something a little bit different. Just the 2 performances at Ibrox, the 2 each draw and the 0-0 draw in the Scottish Cup. Just the fact that the 0-0 one, I don't think we had a shot on target, and we went on penalties, which is class. The 2 each one, we were absolutely appalling, 2-0 down to come back 2 each. I just think that shows a lot of character, and it shows the best qualities within the squad. So yeah, that was mine. European highlights, Barry.
I've gone for Feyenoord away.
Of course.
I thought right from the very start of that game, we looked on it. It was a kind of throwback to. Reminded me of the UEFA Cup days under Martin O'Neill the first time around. Weird kind of team selection that night. I remember like McCowan started on the right of midfield.
That's right.
And just our pressing was great. Thought that Daizen and Rio were really good that night. Nygren's goal, as I mentioned, and there was so many sort of standout performances, and it's mad to think that was just before our most turbulent spell of the season, and kind of a bit of regret that we didn't just keep O'Neill at that point. But for me, it was a really polished performance and so out of character for the team at that point in the season. I know we've mentioned, and you just mentioned there, the character the team have shown, but I just loved it. a wee bit of sort of disbelief when we kind of got that third goal to kind of take the game away from Feyenoord. And yeah, Feyenoord for me, I know they aren't maybe the European name that they were, but they are still a big European name historically. Great stadium, and we just went over there and kind of bossed them. So yeah, that was a standout for me.
Stuart?
I've said that as well, just because I thought that, you know, there's not been an awful lot to cheer about in European football this season, and so I think that is the obvious choice. As a sort of secondary option, for discussion's sake, I've put the Bologna game in just because I think that first half hour up until Hatate just needlessly gets sent off is about as good as we've set up and played as well. And I remember just the surprise of being like, we're actually playing them properly, and from not expecting much from Celtic teams and not being very organised and not being very good with the ball, we're really like knocking it about. We get the goal, you get the setback, then you get another goal, and I remember just really thinking that was going to be our night against all odds. And obviously the second half, the way that the game goes, you're just camped in your box. But I thought there was also plaudits to be taken from that, and how they were quite resolute in a way that I think normally Celtic teams would just really fold and implode.
Yeah.
So it's pretty slim pickings, but I thought that there was a lot to admire about that. And obviously interesting to hear that McGregor saying that he felt that was actually a really important result in terms of seeing enough in the team to get them over the line. So it's obviously been used to motivate them. So yeah, that's it.
My choice is actually Bologna. Obviously, I was in the stadium. We went over to Bologna for that game. One of the cool highlights was we bought tickets to the home end, but the stewards were like, they opened up a second part of the away end. So basically all the Celtic fans in the home end basically all congregated and walked round, which was a nice coming together. Got in the away end, and yeah, it was great. I think the performance was... both Feyenoord games, Feyenoord and Feyenoord and Bologna, it was pressing the goalkeeper.
Yep.
We did that a lot in Europe. I think there was like 3 or 4 times where we pressed the goalkeeper made a mistake. So some real, top level performance stuff in there, which is great. Okay, funniest moment of the season, anything Celtic related that made you laugh. Barry.
It was more the fans, but I've gone to the Auchinleck Talbot game at Rugby Park in January, where there was a number of chants to the board, so sign a player, but also the one for me was, if you want the Celts to lift the Scottish Cup, sign a player.
That's very good.
I loved that. Loved how funny it was. There's probably loads, but I just liked the wit of the away support that night. And we didn't actually sign a player for a transfer fee, but we did win the Scottish Cup, so that's not to vindicate the board. But yeah, I really loved that. It's been a few funny chants this season, but that one was the one that jumped out to me.
Stu?
I've put Ibrox Tunnel.
Off.
Like a Renaissance painting. Just what's the funniest bit? You tell me. There's 100. There's things that still haven't been. What was the one about? Someone was talking about it the other day with the Rojo. You think you're a gangster?
Yeah.
And he starts going, sticking his tongue out.
Who's that Rangers player, the Albanian guy that's just
Bayrami. He's literally foaming at the mouth.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable scenes. Obviously, we were so bad. Sound like Pep. And to come away, that's got to be one of the funniest ways to win those games. It's funny that, we actually, if you think about the League Cup, the Julian goal, that's probably as bad as we've ever been, and we've managed to, steal a game with an offside goal. To come away and play even worse than that and find a whole new way to configure it so it's still really, really funny, just brilliant. And then so many players getting up them, and players that you wouldn't have expected, like Taneke, there was
Ross Doohan,
yeah. Just like loads of other players that you wouldn't even think about. And just absolutely loved it. Could watch it over and over and over again.
Yeah, I've chosen Celtic playing Roll With It straight after we beat Rangers. Obviously, Danny Roll and all that. Just really funny. And the Danny Roll hair system has made me laugh quite a bit. And all the investigation and looking at his hairline and drawing lines is kind of is similar to an offside trap to make sure if we can see his baldness is just. I've enjoyed that throughout the whole season. The Gallus Award, anything unique that showed a player or manager and a Gallus light. Stuart.
Well, we've just talked about him, and I think that he was getting a lot of praise at the live show, and rightly so, for how important he was at probably our lowest ebb when we were really, really, really bad, and he gave fans something to sort of rally around, and that's Julian Orojo. And particularly his comment about Hearts, and he's like, Hearts are top of the league now, but we'll see who's top at the end of the season. I can't remember the exact quote, I should have written that down. But I loved that. It reminded me a bit of... it was Gigi, wasn't it, who was just like more or less was like, Rangers are shit, like we're definitely going to win the league. And I just thought that was amazing for Arojo to say that at a point in which we were absolute dug meat, barely getting through games. But that was obviously a big part of his character and was really infectious and gave fans a bit of a hero where there weren't any at that point. So I've given it to him.
I've given it to Iheanacho for his performance against Hearts and the celebration when he's like, if you want a trophy, come to me. Okay, I'm the man with the trophies. I just thought his cool, calm and collected when he came on against Hearts. He slowed everything down to a pace that suited him. It was absolutely the best. He was flicking the ball here, there and everywhere. I just found his demeanour to be the definition of what you'd call Gallus. So, brilliant. Barry?
I've gone for Arajo, but specifically at Rugby Park. Just the stepping up at the right moment, tucking that one away in the top, the roof of the net, jumping into the crowd, and then it probably was only a minute or minute and a half, but it felt like he was on the stand for absolute ages. Yeah. He does a kind of wee dance.
He's so far in as well.
Yeah, and I remember just like, see, I don't tend to like them, but see all these sort of UK football accounts that have 10 million followers, yeah, but they were just like, what the fuck is going on? Like they were struggling to understand the context of it, like what that meant. And I love when he finally comes back over. There's like, seeing the Celtic TV unique angle, there's like, you know how you get those kind of Celtic's own stewards, and one of them's just like St. Julian and just like pure laughing, and then the ref obviously calls him back and books him, and he kind of just does like a wee gesture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love the guy. It's a shame. I hope that we do get to see him, even if he just comes back one time to do the Paradise Windfall or something. But really love the guy. I remember all the stuff coming out around about that time. He's got the kind of son of immigrants tattoo on his back and all that, and kind of feels like he was the type of player. We often say this about kind of born to play for Celtic. Obviously, I think again it was mentioned on Sunday night about Johnson coming back. You kind of think, well, Johnson is a better player, but if you had the two of them fighting it out for right back and Sirachi and Tierney, I think we would be settled in those positions.
Oh my God.
And again, it probably wouldn't be that. I think you could probably get him for £8 million or so, but would we pay that for a backup? Probably not. But just to have that sort of shining light in dark times, and just, it's something I think that he mentioned he's never experienced anything like that in his career, and why would he with the career that he's kind of had? And that's what Celtic is. Celtic gives these players a platform with the love from the fans and the scenes like that we might not be able to give them the sort of salaries that they'll get elsewhere, but we can give them memories that last a lifetime.
Beautiful.
I thought he showed so much physical fight at a point in which we felt like the team had absolutely none. Like, see his constant battling with Mikey Moore and stuff like that in those games.
Yeah.
People were just desperate for Celtic to show any sign of life, and is so mad that he was the one that delivered that.
Yeah, absolutely. Our last Celtic-related award in the team awards, tearful moment of the season. Barry?
I've gone for, it's kind of featured a lot tonight, but after the Hearts game, they played You'll Never Walk Alone again, and obviously the moment where they cut the music and just hear the crowd, like, it just was overcome with emotion, just bawling my eyes out, just thinking about what we'd been through. You start to do that thing where you really think about Celtic over your lifetime and the generations that have passed it down to you, and people are no longer there, etc., what it would mean. And the whole phrase is a fairy tale about the club. I think that's so spot on. And just, I think it was from me personally, it was an outpouring of emotion, not only because of how hard it would have been, but just how much I love this bloody club.
Bloody club.
Getting choked up here talking about it as well. But no, I just loved it. Even when you're annoyed at them, deep down you love them so much, and that's why you get so annoyed, because you want the best, because when Celtic are playing like that or giving you these emotions, there's not a feeling like it in the world. And just on that, I don't know if you kind of see that access all areas, and it's not called that. The thing that Celtic do. From the footage on Saturday, O'Neill it looked weird because he had his glasses off, but he pops his head into the dressing room and he said, I said last Saturday, meaning the Hearts game was the best day of my life, but this was a really good day as well. And when you think what Martin O'Neill, 74-year-old, I think he's got a couple of daughters.
Couple of European Cups.
And for him to say that was the best day of his life just kind of cements that for me. So an emotional day all round, but when You Never Walk Alone came on, I think everyone sang it with as much fervour as they ever have because of what the team had delivered for us, and yeah, that was the emotional moment for me.
Stu?
So mine's from the same day, same game, but a slightly different moment, and it's my favourite moment of the season, and it's when Daizen Maeda realises that the VAR check has gone his way, and he just throws himself to the ground, starts punching the ground and breaks down in tears. And I think it's how I think we were all feeling, but for a player that most of the season was being told, and probably fairly, that they didn't care, they weren't trying hard enough, to show just how much it's meant to him and just how hard he's worked over that few weeks in the build-up, to have succeeded in dragging it over the line was just unbelievable. And the fact that, there was still 6 or 7 really important minutes to play, and he didn't. It wasn't like a Gaza, like head's gone, needs to go off. It was just an outpouring of emotion, and then he went right back to doing what he'd been doing for those 3-4 weeks in the build-up to it. And we talked about it a little bit. There was that Rocky montage that was going about before the cup final, and Daizen Maeda's body language when he takes the penalty against Kairat Almaty, in the same way that you might kick a can down a street, let alone the most important kick of the ball of the season, to having worked so hard that he has his body physically cannot hold in the tears anymore, and he's punching the ground. I can't remember seeing a transformation like that in one season, and just completely cements himself as a modern legend of the club.
Great answers. For me, it was the interview with Peter Grant and Martin O'Neill. And do you know what? Just don't even take my word for it. It's on YouTube. Go and look at it. It's really, I give Peter Grant a lot of stick. Grew up with Peter Grant as this sort of Celtic midfielder who I never particularly rated overall, but there's no denying how much Celtic means to him. And yeah, go and check it out. It's on YouTube. It made me very, very emotional.
I like how he says thank you to Martin O'Neill.
Yeah.
And it comes across so sincere.
There was a little bit of, not at all in the same sort of level emotionally, but when Mulgrew was interviewing him post-match, he kept calling him hero. He was like, you're my hero. And he kept sort of saying it to Martin O'Neill, and Martin O'Neill's being like, oh, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. But it just shows it's not just us that hold him. And
the reverence that these ex-professionals have for him is unbelievable. Right, we're going to finish with the non-Celtic stuff. This is the biggest throbber of the season. Anyone you fancy, opposition player, pundit, manager, and why? Stuart Dugan.
Quite a few options here. Now it's non-Celtic, so Wilfred Nancy will take the pass. By the way, there was someone at the I meant to bring this up to you both, and I'm happy to bring it up on air. Someone at the live show kept shouting out about Wilfred Nancy erasure, and I think implying that he'd done a lot of good, and that's mad.
Yeah, he kept saying best we played all season or something. Yeah,
unbelievable. Anyway, just had to get it out there. You could have had Michael Stewart. You could have absolutely had Danny Rowe, but I don't think we can forget the Russell Martin weeks and months. It feels like it was about 3 or 4 seasons ago. That's how long ago it felt. It also got so bad that it was perhaps straight into sympathy territory. But at its peak, he was just unbelievable fodder, and I mean, you were going to say it at the time, you can't imagine how frustrating it would have been as a fan, and then we kind of got our own version. But I think that Nancy had a little bit more about him than Russell Martin, and the whole Loch Lomond trip and all that, just could not do right for doing wrong. And I think he's done irreparable damage to his career.
Oh, he's done. I think he's done. I think he'll probably get jobs, but I just think it won't be at the level he probably thought after leaving Rangers. Great one. Barry?
I've gone for Del Boy himself, Derek McInnes.
Oof.
I just, before I actually got here tonight, I saw a tweet, and it was saying he's had kind of front row tickets to so many of our important moments over the last 10 years or so. Obviously being Aberdeen manager, and when we won the Invincible treble, he was also the Kilmarnock manager when we won the league there. 2 years ago in the 5-0, but just the way he's carried himself, the one moment that stands out for me is when he shoulder barges that Aberdeen player.
Fucking weirdo,
And
man.
he wants to talk about respect from us. Obviously, the grainy footage of his knees up, pardon the pun, singing the Sash Bash. And again, a man who has time and time again gone after their fans and saying, well, they want to sing their songs or whatever when he has that in his locker. Just a highly unlikable man. And the highlight for me of the last, well, not the highlight of the last week, but hearing that blow the whistle.
Blow the whistle.
Love it. I love how you can hear him in the background say it. And I just think, seeing how much he crumbled and scuttling away on the bus was fantastic and no more than he deserved.
I just went with the simple one. I went with Michael Stuart and how he's absolutely lost his head since Celtic won the league, throwing out weird allegations and insinuations about Celtic being handed the title. I think he's done damage to his career, and the fetishisation of Michael Stuart by Celtic fans cannot continue. Next one, just made a fool of yourself in front of T-Bone. Anyone that's made an absolute arse of it on TV or on the pitch, looking for a specific example. I'll give you mine first. Mine's is when John Robertson and Chris Boyd started talking about the physics of a football hitting an arm and how if it hit your arm in mid-flow, it would just drop to the ground. Both trying to convince themselves of it was just one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen. They absolutely made a fool of themselves in front of the T-Bone. Sure.
I've saved this one for Danny Rule, where there are variations of this quote when he said they had 9 cup finals, 8 cup finals, 7 cup finals, but definitely going into the split when he said they had 5 cup finals now and he lost 4 of them. I thought that was fucking amazing, because it's such a shoot yourself in the foot thing to say, where you're like, well, we have to win these games. And you can say that in a number of ways, but the more times you say it's a cup final and the more times you lose them, it underwrites that the team and the management are not equipped to handle the moments. And it just got funnier and funnier each week they lost. And it's funny that, like we said earlier on, that one piece of transfer business, everyone's forgotten about Danny Rule now that they're just going to sign quite staunch Scottish players. Everyone's forgotten the tactical ineptness, the lack of reactivity, and all these sorts of things in game management. And I do feel like it's just going to end up the same way. I think we're going to have more of the like before he goes, but it seems like they're on a very similar treadmill to the usual.
It's just going to be your standard October dismissal. October, early November dismissal. Barry.
I've got a different one, but just on Danny Rowe as well, was when he said, I'm surprised Celtic didn't try and win the game.
Oh my God.
That's right.
I'm surprised he didn't try and win the league.
Well, exactly.
And he also said that they asked about Celtic being like the biggest opponent, and he's like, they're third or whatever, they're not our biggest opponent. Just a tip.
I've gone for Michael Stewart, and it's not for what you would think. It was obviously when all the trouble sort of broke out in the Middle East, and was it Hearts or Rangers were supposed to be going to Dubai?
It was Hearts that were supposed to be going to Dubai.
And then he said, do you think Hearts will still be going to Dubai? And they were all just like, what have you just said? And he said, oh yeah, of course.
Fucking hell.
Literally bombs flying over the sky, and he's suggesting that Hearts should go there. And then just to kind of back that up as well with what you just said about that meltdown where he's insinuating like everyone knows what's going on. Like, what do you mean?
It's us as journalists should be bringing it up, and then he doesn't say anything.
Yeah. And then, did you see the graphic? I saw it in a group chat where it said Michael Stewart not at Hampden. And I thought that was really nice as well, because he's obviously talked himself into trouble. And I totally agree with what you said, Gall. I think he's going to become sort of persona non grata, because he's been so outlandish that even Chris Boyd would be turning his nose up at him.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, 2 more to go. The second last one we have is most overrated moment of the season, a non-Celtic related moment that was blown all out of proportion as a moment of greatness or glory, any form, quote, article, pundit or player. Stuart.
Again, maybe I've not answered this particularly correctly, but in general I've just put Hearts title push, because I think that the Hearts title push was admirable in its consistency, but I just think that for a long, long time they are not and have not been a good side. They've been finding ways to win and have been averaging a win every 2 or 3 games, and the outcry about Celtic have been handed the title, and it's been this one penalty decision that's gone their way. They've won, was it one away game since into 2026? And if that continues, that's like mid-table form. Obviously, their home form was really admirable, but a lot of those games they were getting over the line with 1-0s or players being sent off. And I even felt the first Nancy game, I thought Celtic could have got a result there. I thought the Tynecastle game where Trusty gets sent off, I thought we could have got a result there. And this just notion that they've been this juggernaut that's really, really earned and deserved to win the league, I thought has been really overblown because, those last... Let's say the second half in that last game when the chips were down, you saw who the better team were and it wasn't Hearts.
Absolutely. Well, very well put. Barry?
I've gone for the exact same. I've said Hearts when they thought they'd won the league against Rangers and then also against Falkirk, and they had that wee countdown,
3 days
to go, 2 to go or whatever. Yeah, they were workmanlike for me. Maybe overpowered teams with physicality, but there wasn't many games where I thought they played really good football, and it just made it all the sweeter that the whole of the world out with the Celtic diaspora, as Martin O'Neill lovely put it.
Love it.
Wanted Hearts to win and they just weren't able to do it. So, yeah, overrated for me.
Yeah, I've put Hearts beating Rangers at the end of the season and the scenes that followed with all the sort of three games to go and all that. But also here's a quote from Braga. There's only one team who can stop Hearts winning the title now. Ourselves. No, I think it was Celtic beat you.
Wrong.
So, there you go, wrong. Okay, our final Cynic award of the 25-26 season. Most overrated player of the season. A player that is lauded by the media / Scottish football that's actually shite. Barry.
I've gone for the big centre-half at Rangers, Fernandes.
Okay.
I think that there was a spell where he did play well, but people were talking as if he was going to be their version of Virgil van Dijk and would get big money. Now, that might be the case because I think naturally Scottish football is starting to catch up with the rest of the world and demanding big transfer fees, but I just don't see it with the guy. He finished third, and we were speaking about this in the pub actually the other day, that the way he celebrated that disallowed goal when it couldn't have been a clearer handball and he knew that, and it's almost like he cheated himself there. Maybe it's just green tinted glasses. I'll probably never give any of their players credit, but I just don't see where all this praise comes from, because I don't think he's ever been particularly good against us, and I don't think he was good against Hearts either. So the big test he's had, I don't think he's come through it. So just maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I just don't see it with him as a player, and just so funny to see him do that celebration at Ibrox.
There's an amazing clip of him. I can't remember what game it is. It's one of the ones from the split. But basically, Rangers are on the attack, and then the team go up the other end and score. And the pace with which he saunters back is absolute comedy gold. So I think that's a great pick. I've actually just changed my pick in my head. I was going to say something, but can you ask me the question again, please?
Okay, Stuart. Who is the most overrated player of the season?
Tony Bloom.
Oh.
Oof.
Because I was initially going to say Kizaridis, but I thought I'm going to expand that out to Jamestown Analytics and by default Tony Bloom, because I think that a lot of Hearts' success has been attributed to Jamestown Analytics, and I don't think that's been where their success has come from. I think their success has come from a sort of ragtag bunch of Scottish journeymen, your likes of Halkett, Finlay, Devlin, Beningame, Shanklin, all these players, Kent, Spittle, these have been the real standouts. I'd initially said Kizaridis, but he started the season really, really well and then just kind of went off a cliff. And I think he's only scored something like 6 goals all season. And I think kind of the same for Braga. I know Braga sort of swept all the Writers' Awards and everything. When the chips were really down at the end, I know he was carrying an injury and maybe you give him a little bit of leeway with that, but I just don't think that they really stood out. And so I don't think that it's been as impactful. I think it can be, especially with the likes of Shanklin moving on. I think Jamestown Analytics are absolutely poised to go and put a 19-year-old Colombian in that can go and do this, primed for life in the Premiership. But at the moment, I don't think it's been anywhere near as successful as people say.
Great stuff. Mine's most overrated player of the season: Cammy Devlin, Lawrence Shanklin, Craig Halkett, Finlay, Braga, etc., etc. Hearts in general. That's it. that's our season. That's the weekly. It's been a fantastic season with Stuart and Barry. We'll be back. We'll have stuff on the Cynic Weekly feed over the summertime. Certainly, but the Cynic itself, Celtic, the season stopped, but the Cynic don't. We've got podcasts, lots of podcasts throughout the week, throughout the month. As I said, we did 353 last season, so if you're interested in constant Celtic content, thecynic.co, or check out the Cynic on Patreon. It's been an absolute joy. Barry, your final thoughts for the season, and
I just wanted to thank you both and thank everyone that's listened, and also the other contributors that have been on, Bowd, Scott, etc., over the course of the season. It has been a turbulent season, but it's been great to talk through it. And I think this close season more than ever, I'm really looking forward to a rest from it.
Yeah.
Because of the sort of toll that it's taken. But we'll be refreshed and we'll come back
stronger than ever
next season. Yep.
Great stuff. Stuart, your final thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a difficult season, but a successful one. It's been a privilege to talk through it with yourselves every week, and thanks very much to the listeners for sticking with us. I'm sure it will be a bumpy pre-season as well, so get subscribed to thecynic.co if you haven't already.
Good man. From Barry Gallagher, from Stuart Duggan, from myself, Chris Gallagher, this has been the Cynic Weekly, and we'll speak to you down the road.